Hello, everybody. Denise here. Welcome to our RED review meeting. In this opportunity, we're going to be going through the material for RED program 162. We are a little bit behind. And this is because we've been working with the event and we've been working with a lot of material also in Spanish. And this whole turbulence with the World Cup, I just feel like there has been so much going on for us. Okay, thank you. So welcome everybody, and we are here with Nienke. She's from the
Hi.
Netherlands. Hello, Nienke, welcome. We have also Molly,
Hi,
Molly from the US, specifically New York.
New York.
Yes, and also Jeff also from New York.
Yes, hello everyone.
Hello.
Upstairs for Molly.
Sorry?
Yes.
And upstairs for Molly.
Yes. They are husband and wife. Jeff and Molly are husband and wife, and both in New York. Welcome, you guys. We've been working together for a long time, but we're trying this new thing where we want to say hello to everybody. We have Girge, also from the Netherlands. Hello, Girge.
Hello.
Hello. And we have Marjolein, also from the Netherlands.
Yes, living in Ibiza, today in Amsterdam, tomorrow
Oh, yes.
Costa Rica.
Living in Ibiza, but yes, she's in the Netherlands now. And yeah, hopefully we'll meet in Costa Rica, hopefully.
Yeah.
And we have Gabby, native from Germany, but living in the Netherlands. She's around. Yeah, she's there, but maybe she's working. So welcome, you guys. And yeah, so we're going to be going through 162 program. It is very, very technical. So hopefully it's not too heavy. I'll try to go through it as best as I can. So here we go. You guys can, I'm gonna silence your microphones because I'm very sensitive to little noises. But if you guys want to ask a question in the middle of the emission, you can just raise your hand and we can talk. Okay, so this was the program for lab 12, right? It was recorded on the 26th of June of 2026. And it is very important to keep in mind that the last day of lab 11 is day 25th of June, because there's a lot of technicalities in relation to that technicalities. One second. Okay, so here we have lab 12. Another thing that we have here is that the first day of lab 12, remember that when we are talking about solar consciousness, the solar consciousness does not have a native date, right? Because it has contact with every single point in the structure. So it is important that because this is what we have been doing, we are learning about the space-temporal structures, right? So for us to know that day 177 is day 1 of lab 12, that helps calibrate our antennas. Okay, so it is important for us to know these details. Even though we're not native to a specific date, it is important that we learn about the structures as a whole. Okay, so yeah, the program was recorded on that first day. Also, for those of us who have been following the event, we know that if we add the words Planeta Mercurio, they add up to 177, which is the first orbital of the solar system, right? Planeta Mercurio. Okay, so of course, on the 24th of June, we had Venezuela's earthquake. Sadly, yes, the very terrible earthquake. It was really, really bad for the people in Venezuela. So many people dead, so many people trapped. So this was the program where Alejandra began talking about that. And she didn't say a lot about it because, you know, respecting the solidarity of the situation. But what she said is that this is an opening, a human opening for something, because the reading that we have been having regarding the solar code, we know that the solar code is going solarly, things are going very well. But when we see how things solarly are going quite well, and then we see how socially things are not going so well, it is because the solar perspective and the social perspective, in a way, are opposites. In a way, are opposites, right? So she's saying that the solar opposes the social, is opposing the social. So the credit that the social consciousness had, the levels of ignorance that were being managed socially, are slowly losing credit. Yes. So she just said, like, just the comments that she made about it, respecting, everything that these people are still going through, because this is going to be a very hard thing for them to be able to recover from. Now, all of our eyes were in Venezuela a couple of weeks ago, and now everybody has forgotten. But really, the people from Venezuela are going to be having a very, very hard time to recover from this. So everything that Alejandra presents in this program, she said that indirectly is going to be something that's going to collaborate to soften all these space temporal paths that are opening and that are touching us so closely. Something like the earthquake, right? So she's saying society is nourished by experiences. Society is nourished by experiences. This is because they had no capacity of anticipation. There was no because there was no resonance with these resources that are providing some of us with this infrastructure of anticipation. Because remember that in 2012, the signal was for everybody, right? So the people that resonated are the people that are going to be able to work with this anticipatory system. But the general of society, that's not the case. That's not the case. The only way that they're going to be able to learn is to bump into the experiences. So if experiences don't shake them, there will not be any changes. Okay? And also because there is no capacity to update the interpreter. If there is no capacity to update the interpreter, then there's not going to be enough capacity to interpret the flow of signals. Because if there is this thing of clinging to the past and interpreting all of these novelties that we're being exposed to with being clinged to the past, I mean, of course, implosion, disbalance is going to be in our future because we're not going to be able to interpret any of these things. So when there is no antenna, the human experiences will collapse. There's going to be human experiences of collapse if our antenna is at zero. If our antenna is at zero, if we are not working with our antenna, our human experiences are going to be of collapse. So that's basically like the reading of what's happening. And of course, not only in Venezuela, we are experiencing multiple situations like this all over the world. And they all come down to the same reason, and it is because the antenna is not working, and we're not busy with this construction of this anticipatory system. Yes. Because in order for us to be able to do something like this, we have to let go of the memorials. And this is something that it's very hard to do if we don't have the proper concepts that are going to support us in that transition. So we will see, she says, we will see how all of this is managed and how the movement of Earth in this process of balancing itself goes on. Yes, because this is a process of Earth coming back into balance. So from here, she jumps into a specific question that somebody had. And I think the origin of this, and ironically, for me, it was an origin. For me, it was an inception because it's something that somebody asked in the event. But Alejandra just said one thing and never talked about it again. And then somebody kept on asking about it. And for me, I mean, what Alejandra brought from that is brilliant. But what I always say is like, we should always be focusing on the things that we can reach. Because if we are being presented with 2 hours of brilliant information and then we only focus on the thing that we don't understand, what's going to happen there? We're going to block all of the other stuff. Yes. So it's always, because this is a really good example of working from our reach and outside. So it is important to be working from our reach inside, from our reach and inside of our domain, not from our reach out. Okay, focusing on what I can reach, what I can comprehend on my own, what I can reason on my own. So that's like what my personal opinion on this. But regardless of that, of course, Alejandra always provides us with brilliance of anything that we can ask her, or any intervention that comes her way. She's gonna pull out something brilliant. So this is a brilliant thing that came out of that. Somebody asked, the question was, where is the processor in the human body, basically? Honestly, this is a question that I would never have thought of something like this, because the processor, the way that I understand the processor, is something of an abstract infrastructure. Yes, because if we want to learn about the human body, then we study anatomy, medicine, right? But the center of control of the body is not physical. And this is exactly what she explains. So basically what she says is like, I don't know. It's not my job to tell you where the processor in the body is, because that's not my job. The people that work with that, the people that know the body, can tell you, right? And we're all gonna make our own conclusions on that. But it is important to just locate it in the scale where it belongs, which is the anatomic. But here she says, it is not about information. LGC is not about information. It's about having the conceptual formation, so that because we need to have a conceptual formation previously to coming into contact with with a signal or a flow of signals. Because if we have a flow of signals and we don't have a robust conceptual infrastructure, then we're not going to be able to interpret anything, of course. And what's going to happen is that it's just going to go directly to the reactives, and we're going to respond to that stimulation with the reactives or with the memories, because I have no capacity to manage or modulate the flow of signals. So that is why the creation of concepts is so important, because it's going to provide the receiver with the capacity to modulate the flow of signals. So here's what she presents, right? She presents this and she starts explaining the different characteristics that each point in the structure is going to have, from the personal up and from the personal down. We have called this in the past RI positivo and RI negativo, negative RI and positive RI. Okay, negative RI is going to have to do with the memorials or the documentation that we're going to have. And positive RI is going to have to do with the captations that we're going to have. Yes, it's going to be the part of the antenna. So this is something that I repeat all of the time, and I'm going to repeat it always. Remember, as a subatomic particle, in order for me to be able to have a material experience inside a specific entorno and acquire a member of the species membership, I need to make a framework contract with a specific entorno. Yes, in this case, the entorno is going to be the solar collective space, specifically the third orbital. Okay, so as a particle that has no memory, no cycle, no nothing, it's just pure antenna, it has to make this framework contract so that it acquires a sense of belonging to a specific entorno. That's what the memorials do. When we accept this, we insert ourselves in the entorno and we acquire all of these memorials, right? Because we need to create the sense of belonging and the sense of coherence. And that's what the memorials provide to the particle. So, but the thing is that working with the understanding that these memorials are not my own. In Spanish, the words that Alejandra uses specifically are apropiado y propio. Propio is something related to mine. Yes, mine. And apropiado is something that I acquire from outside. I appropriate. Okay? So when she says interacting with the memorials and understanding that they are something that I acquired, meaning that they're not mine. The memorials are not mine. They don't belong to me. I appropriated them. But in order to have this clear in our conceptual base, we need to have a clear separation also in the understanding of the member of the antenna of the universe, the membership of the member of the antenna of the universe, and the membership of the member of the species. The member of the species is the one that's going to work more with the memorials. The member of the universe, no, it's going to work purely with occurrences from the universe, okay? So this is a very important thing to have in our conceptual base. This situation with the memorials, the member of the species, the member of the entorno, and the apropiado and propio. The way that we interact with the memorials, okay? Okay. So she says, I'm going to take the point through which an event of the entorno is captated, or we come into contact with an event of the entorno, or a variable of the entorno. This variable of the entorno is going to be like a stimulation, and it's going to either activate our antenna. If we are having modulation with the antenna, we're going to work with it through our antenna, or if we don't have that, it's going to come directly into our reactives, and we're going to respond to that directly from the memorials. So what do we want to do? What do we want to do? We want to work with the antenna more, right? We don't want it to be an automatic response gathered from the memorials. We want it to be consciously modulated. So this is what this is for. Okay, so the stimulation is what we call base 12. The stimulation is going to be base 12 because it's external source. The stimulation is an external stimulation to our antenna or receiver. Okay, and then base 21 is going to be the response to that, how we respond to that. How robust is our infrastructure. Depending on that is going to depend the capacity to respond to those demands or those stimulations. So the point that she is signaling right here, she says it is the intersection between ri and ro. This is the intersection between ri and ro. And it is the point that has to do with the contact between the stimulation and the response. Okay, so this is the crossroad between ri and ro, and it's going to be the contact of the stimulation and the response. So back again, depending on how good or how much work we put into our multidimensional infrastructure, how obsessive we are with all of this, it's going to depend on how the stimulation is going to be responded to, the base 21. Yeah. So we either, because if we have these scales properly differentiated, we're going to know where the signal is coming from or where it should go. Yeah. Or where, or create a new capacity to respond. So this is like really, really important. Okay. So she said, it is not me. I'm not the one that is going to say where what she's explaining, the intersection between ri and ro. She says, I am in no place to say where that is in the body, but what I am going to say is that there is a point in the body through which a signal turns on a response. Okay, so it is in the center of the personal structure. See, we are not talking about the body here. We're talking about an abstract infrastructure. Okay. So what is the reach that this stimulation is going to have? and what is the reach that the response is going to have. We can go back always to the main example of what Alejandra does, okay? Let's say Rivadavia 575. Remember that flow of signals of when the phone was stolen and all of that. There's a stimulation and there's a reach of the response of that stimulation. What did Alejandra do there? There was a tremendous reach in the response, right? There we can see Alejandra's base 21. Alejandra's base 21 has an enormous reach, a capacity to respond, because it gave us this tremendous learning route, and it took us all the way to apparatus 575, which is putting into the apparatus that is in charge of generating value for reality. 575, right? Okay. So what is gonna define this reach? The reach of the the reach of the stimulation and the reach of the response. That's gonna depend on how the person is connected to the gravitational structure. Because the person can be connected to the gravitational structure through the unified field, through the memories, or it can have also the memories, but not only the memories. Mainly an antenna. Mainly, like if our primary identity is that of the subatomic instance. That particular instance is my main identity, or if my main identity is member of the species and only member of the species. That's gonna depend, right? Because if we have the other one, then we are going to be on a scalar growth, and our interpreter is going to be nourishing itself constantly, and our capacity to interpret the signals is also going to be expanding constantly. So she says, in order for a person to be installed in a unified field, it needs to have taken a route. That route is the species. There is a species inside the unified field, but this species needs to have a previous documentation. Because in order for the third dimension to move or to exist, it needs an infrastructure that we know of as past. So past is a function from the spatial perception. From the spatial consciousness, time is a function. It is something that comes and adds new things to the space. So from the spatial perspective, the past is going to be a function that allows the third dimension to be, okay? So the past is technically a unit of memory. So, okay, there is this stimulation from the entorno, and it is received by a specific point in the receiver, which we call the center of the personal. Yeah, the center of the personal structure is the intersection between Ri and Ro. So if the response, remember, the capacity to respond, which is what we called base 21. This is a good opportunity to observe ourselves, self-observe ourselves and be like, what is my base 21? Like, what is my capacity to respond? How do I respond to things? Do I usually respond to things from pulling from the memory? Or am I actively working on responding to things with my antenna, which is creating new things all the time? Yes, because we are going to be, the thing with the memorials is that it's going to provide us with safe responses that are going to generate safety to our bodies. But the more that we work with our antennas, like in that transition, when we start to support ourselves more from the antimatter and not support ourselves more from the memories, our bodies are going to feel really insecure because they're not going to feel that safety that they're used to. So with our consciousness, we have to accompany our bodies through that transition. Okay, so if this stimulation comes from the past, then the logical points, so she's calling logical points. These things that she's circling, these points and intersections that she is selecting right now, right there, she's calling them logical points. Logical points, okay? So depending on how the particularity is connected or how it is configured, depending on that is going to depend the capacity to respond. So if the connection is more through the memorials, then these are the logical points that are going to be turned on. These are the places where the stimulation is going to arrive to. Yes. So what happened with the earthquake in Venezuela, and using that as an example, but knowing that a lot of the things going on in the world have to do with this same thing. There is no recreation of our capacity to respond, which was 2021. Remember year 2021? And that segment between 2012 and 2021, the recreation of the external source and the recreation of our capacity to respond. 2021. If they were not busy doing that, constructing this abstract infrastructure because they were tied to the past, and only the things from the past are the things that have value, then what happens is that these stimulations that our sun is going through, experiencing as it moves through the universe, then they go directly into these logical points that have to do with the cimiento. So the cimiento does this, okay? The memberships of the member of the species and the membership of the member of the universe are not the same thing. They're completely different because one has a non-physical support and the other one has a physical support. So we are in this transition. This formation, part of this formation, or one of the main things of this formation, has to do with this. Learning to support ourselves from the antimatter mainly, and not from the memorials. It is a very difficult thing to do, to let go of the memorials. It is like a whole thing. It is a whole process. It is not an easy thing to do. So we have a third dimensional identity, which is the member of the species, and then we have another identity that is not third dimensional. Okay? Differentiating these two things is just like a really good place to start. Okay, so we have the personal infrastructure, and then the personal infrastructure has its relationship with the clan. The clan has its relationship with the species, and the species has a relationship with the entorno. Okay? Okay, so here we have these logical points, right? So it's gonna depend where the stimulus is gonna be treated, depending on the base 21 of each configuration. So it's like when we talked about base 21 previously in previous years, it was like hyper condensed. Yes, like when she spoke about base 21, it was like really condensed concept. And now because it is as if we download a really heavy file and we need a lot of time to read that file. That's like what happens with the concepts. We work with concepts for years, like we download a concept when we establish it, the foundational moment of a concept. That's when we download like a really heavy file, and then we need a lot of time to go through that. Okay, so it is like we barely have enough development of base 21 concept to like a little bit grasp it more what it means. Okay, so this really important differentiation, also important in our self-evaluation, because we know we are working here together, we are accompanying each other in our processes, but this is a self-referential process, completely self-referential. So we are the only ones responsible of auditing ourselves. Nobody should be defying us and nobody should be auditing us. We should be defying ourselves and auditing ourselves. So we could use this. How goodly differentiated do I have the neurology? Like when I board a specific situation neurologically, or when I board it completely logically. because the logic has to, when I board it logically, the neurology is not, I'm not using the neurology too much. So when I am I'm not compromising my neurology, I am compromising myself logically. And when I am compromising myself logically, it is from that point and up. When I am compromising my neurology, it's from that point and down. Yes? When I am involving the memorials. If I'm involving the memorials, then I am involving the neurology. If I'm not involving the memorials, I am not involving the neurology. It sounds like a riddle. So this is going to modulate my response to the stimulation. Okay? If I don't know how to do that, then the algorithm of the memory is the one that's going to respond. The most precarious responses. That's what we remember when, I don't know if you guys remember when Alejandra spoke about why volcanoes erupt. Volcanoes erupt, and that is like the most precarious response that Earth has. Because if there is no modulation in the middle, then the responses are going to be the most precarious. Also, we have heard this with understanding illness in our bodies is a response, a precarious response to something that I don't have the infrastructure to deal with. So I get the most precarious responses. So when the algorithm of the, I am only using the algorithm from the memory, that's when these logical points from here and down are going to be, those are the ones that are going to be working. And they're going to be working according to what the fourth cardinality has stored as a little button of activation. So all of the things that the fourth cardinality has stored, that's what we call on. That's what we call on, which is like in the notes diagram, we have on, right? In the corner, in the lower hand corner of the SE cardinality. So what do we have here? The automatic responses, when there is no consciousness involved, when there's only a third dimensional identity, and there is no consciousness involved, then those stimulations are all going to go directly to on, and it's going to give me an algorithm or automatic algorithmical response. Yeah? Algorithmical response. Stimulation on, stimulation on, stimulation on. There is no modulation in the middle because, of course, there is no construction of an anti-material infrastructure. So the SE cardinality is a collective cardinality. We've spoken about this quite a lot before. SO and E and O are particular cardinalities. But the SE is the area, the collective area where we're all gonna go. If we are in this scalar growth, we're gonna have updated SO and E and O cardinalities, and we're gonna take all of that into the SE cardinality, and everybody's gonna do that. We're all gonna do that. We're all gonna have whatever configuration of our octave, and we're gonna put it into play inside this collective area, right? This is why the second 11 laps are so important, because this is where I map others who are not myself, and I include things in my radar that are not my preference. So it's like really, really important that we do this. It's really important that we include new things in my radar that are not my preference. So here she just drew the NO cardinality and the SE cardinality and the on position in the collective, right? Which is going to be everything that the fourth cardinality stored. Remember that the memorials of the SE cardinality belong to the entorno. They don't belong to us. We have usage of those things. We have licenses to use those things. Okay, this is key, you guys. So really, really, really don't let this become volatile. This is really important. To be able to develop consciousness at a particular scale, you need to have particular frequency, right? We need to, which we have. If we're here, we have that. To have resonance is to have an itch in the subatomic area to develop consciousness at that level. That's why we're here. If we are here, we have that. Now, to have particular consciousness, and this is the question that we want to ask ourselves, how much am I able to withdraw myself from the collective? That is going to be the thermometer through which I'm going to measure how, like, the levels that I have constructed or how much I have developed my particular consciousness. How much am I able to withdraw myself from the collective? Am I able to remove and add the fourth cardinality as I need it? Or am I stuck in one or the other? Because if I'm stuck, for example, in the NO cardinality, and I'm not able to have any capacity to respond to the SE, it is like I'm only an observer of the third dimension, but I don't implement myself. Like I don't assign myself in there because I am in a way crystallized and I feel like I have no capacity to respond in there. Yeah. And something that helps us there also is the more we are able to support ourselves from the antimatter, that's gonna give us a lot of security in the unified field because we are going to be recognizing that we ourselves are the ones guiding ourselves from another instance. I am guiding myself from another instance, so that gives me a lot of security in here. And also I am contemplating the margin of error. If I am administrating my own gravitational projection inside the third dimensional profile that I have, I am the one that's administrating that. I am guiding myself, but I know that there's going to be a margin of error in the third dimension. So I am contemplating my margin of error. So there's no self-rejection, there's no fear, because I am working with my reach, and my reach has a margin of error. So I contemplate that, and I'm fine. It gives me a lot of security in the field. Autarkia, Alejandra calls it. Independence in the unified field. Yeah? But on the other hand, if the collective defines me 100%, then I'm going to be under strictly reactive structures, which are going to be natural for the member of the species. These structures are natural for the member of the species. But Ale says nothing about the third dimension is natural. It is all artificial. So the member of the species has a scope, has a specific scope, but it is very short. Like they have no incidence in the collective because they use the collective, but they are not writers of new tracks. They are not bringing anything new to the earth. No new potentials. Remember the especie and the especial. Remember that? Okay, so here we continue with the species. The species provides all of its members with determined permits. And that permit is protect your life before anyone else, right? Protect your own life. That is like a permit that the species gives to the members. The thing is that we are members of a species, but then we also have a clan because we are also people. Yes, we are not animals. We have extra structures as humans. We are members of the species, and we are also humans with extra structures. And those extra structures are gonna be the clan and the personal. Okay, so if we are also including the clan, I'm gonna be using these permits or capacities that the species provides because the species is always focused on, okay, the most precarious concept is protect your life before anyone else. So that translates into kill anybody that comes your way, become faster, become stronger, step on anybody, manipulate everybody, create all these. It doesn't matter what I need to do, but I'm going to protect my own life first, and I'm not going to care about anybody else. That's a strictly configuration of the species. It is a person that is not including that other area of the clan, because if I'm as a member of the species, I'm including the clan, then I am going to be using those improvements. Yes, I want to get stronger. I want to get faster. I want to generate all these new, I want to become smarter, but not because I want to be better than everybody else, but because I want to be better at support, providing support to others. That is what the inclusion of the the clan represents. Yes, I want to get better, but not to be ahead of everybody else. I want to get better so that I can provide better support for the rest. Okay? Okay. Now, the thing is that if developing new aptitudes for life and survival is complete, like the only sense, the only meaning of your life, the only meaning of your life is to create new survival and new aptitudes to be ahead of everybody else. If that's the meaning of your life, then that's usually a very dangerous person, and they're gonna be self-habilitating to cheat, to lie, to do anything, and not caring about anybody else. Yes, but if I balance the species with the clan, then we have that other outcome, which is, yes, I want to improve in every way that I can, but the reason for that is to provide support to everybody else as much as I can, generate value to the collective, because I understand that I am implemented in a collective instance. The sun is a collective of particles, and one of the most important things of the improvement of the solar code is to improve the quality of the interactions between the content, right? So I want to contribute to that. So improving myself, improving myself constantly, with the notion of, yes, I want to improve my own life. I want to improve myself, yes, of course. But I also want those improvements to provide support to everybody else. So I am not only focused on myself. Yes, I am including in my notion of existence the fact that we are in a collective. Okay. So this is like a really open understanding of a person that we see as selfish. It is just a strict configuration of the species. Hmm. She says every scale is going to have a different axioma. Yes, an axioma is something that needs no explanation because it is true. It is a true in its essence. The thing is that every scale is going to have a different axioma. We can relate this to logic. Every scale is going to have its different logic. Yes, the logic is going to determine the axioma that each scale is going to have. For example, the axioma, we have just been describing the axioma of the species. Okay, the logic of the species, that's what she's talking about. Now, if I am only working inside my personal infrastructure, then I'm only going to be busy with like the things that are within my preference. She calls them soft qualities. Yes, I'm going to be focusing on like the soft qualities, like, I don't know, my arts or my dancing or my cooking, soft qualities. The thing is that when we start moving towards the scale of the entorno, those qualities become hard. It is like hard sciences and soft sciences. Stricter. Yeah. Um, Okay, but if I am calibrating or adding new qualities to my consciousness can my consciousness is including all of these instances, all of these structures, then I am going to be managing my personal area, but I'm going to be including all of those other frames. So my person is going to be developing in many different scales, not only in the personal area. Yes, I am going to be developing myself, including all of those other instances. So that is going to turn out to be a very integrated person, a very integrated human being. Not like this balance is going to reduce. It's going to be reducing because I am including as much qualities as I can, as are within my reach. Um, the framework contract is the framework with the entorno. The entorno has the species, the clan, and the person. And wait, the sheet. Let's go back here. The entorno has the species, the clan, and the person, right? But then she says, all of the rest out here is the mute zone. And that is the space for the observer. The space for the observer, okay? So if the observer has all of that space to observe all of that, then it can begin to construct this capacity to sequence. And it all begins when we start to differentiate the different scales. So this is also something that we worked in the event. If the person is only anchored to the clan, then the scope is only from here to here. The clan and the clan. It stops there. There can be a reach to the species, but the reach to the entorno is this. Now, that's what she calls, if my all, A-L-L, if my all is anchored to the clan, then the clan is going to be my all. Yes, there's not going to be anything more. Same with the species. If I am anchored with the species, then improving myself to get ahead, that's going to be my all. If I anchor myself to the entorno, then okay, I am including more things. So ALL is here, LLA is over here. So that's gonna, depending on how much I am able to differentiate these scales separately, then my barra tal, remember barra tal, it's gonna expand. Yes, Jeff?
Okay. So if you would you mind going back up to the drawing? Yeah, yeah. So I'm just this makes more sense to me. I just want to make sure like maybe I had a misunderstanding. So outside of the interno, in all the quadrants is the mute zone. I had an
Mm-hmm.
understanding that the NE was the mute zone, but then that's different then. So I just want to clarify the distinction.
There's a mute zone in every quadrant.
Right, right. I
Mm-hmm.
understand that now, and now that I see it, that makes more sense. But then, just as a reference, how would we compare the NE, right? That so then what would be a good label for that?
That's really hard for me. Um, Also, this is something very new. Okay, this is like
Yes.
the first thing that I heard about this was a couple of months ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So what we could say is, let's see. Let's just say that the mute zone is a space for the observer.
Hmm.
Yes, mute zone space for the observer to compartmentalize the flow of signals. Yes. So the thing is that here, specifically here, I don't want to get ahead because it's not something that is quite clear yet in general in the development. But specifically here, we're working with the position of ALL, which is this one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here in this specific program, we're going to be working only because, like I said, it's not yet developed the other ones.
Okay.
We're working with the mute zone or the ALL of the SO cardinality because we are talking about the body as a receiver. So in the ALL of the SO cardinality, we're gonna be talking about the mute zone of the body. So let's just work with that first. The mute zone of the body, and that's going to represent the ALL according to each configuration. So that's where we enter into differentiating. If the person is only anchored with the clan and that's the only reach, then the ALL of the person is going to be the clan. And then, for example, if the ALL of the person, the configuration is a species, then we have someone like Donald Trump. Even though he protects his families and all, but the
Mm,
species, well, you know how he is with his daughter. So the species is, you know, when the ALL is anchored on the species, then it's just I want to get ahead. I want to get ahead and I don't care. Now, if the ALL is of the entorno, this also depends because it can be a connection with the entorno through a third dimensional profile, and that's going to translate into nature and earth, but it's also quite short. But here we're not talking about that. When we do ALL all the way here, then we are talking about outside the unified field. Reach outside of the unified field.
right. Okay. I see that. And I just kind of recall this is just years ago. So it just kind of fallen out. So if the SE, right, is social, then the NE, would that be the mente?
The
Like
SE is social and the what?
I'm just trying to remember so if SE is like the social quadrant, the north
Collective. Let's say collective.
collective, then the northeast would be what name would you give it?
Oh, the NE.
Any.
The okay. So the SE is collective, but the
Yep.
rest are particular. So the NE would be your mind,
Mind. Okay. Right.
mind, consciousness, and body. Remember?
Right. Distinct from observer. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Observer. But the thing is that okay. The thing with the observer. Remember the table full of nothing?
The,
You didn't see the event?
oh no, I haven't seen the event. Yeah.
Okay. So in the event, we have a really interesting thing with the table. The observer is what provides the hosting for whatever later is going to be developed in there. Yes. So initially, before anything else, there's an observer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that has to do with the spatial consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So the observer, we have a quality of observer everywhere,
Yes.
always. Yes. But purely the observer is an O. And then the observer mixed with the others, but the observer has to do with the space, the spatial configuration that later provides us with all of these matrices that we work on. Yeah?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Does that
Yes.
it doesn't have to close completely, but it does have to soothe in a way your
Yes, yeah, no, I just needed kind of like just a historical reference. I just, so a label is all I needed.
okay.
Conceptually, I feel I
The
have it.
concept.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
concept feels in territory. I just needed a label that I didn't remember.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Very well. Um, so here's what she says. If a species is anchored, if the ALL is anchored on the species, then that species is going to become the predator of the rest of the species, right? According to all of these things that we have been explaining previously. Um, so why is this happening to this entorno? And this is something that soothes a lot too. How can we understand the fact that humans are predating on each other and on the rest of the species. The reason for this is because the solar code has a deficit. There's a deficit in the solar code because it is allowing one of those species to get out of control. It hasn't been able in the past, hopefully now it can, but it wasn't able to regulate one species, the human species. So the human species, because it wasn't being regulated by the structure, then it became a predator to everything else. Now, she says here, I think this adds a little bit to what we were just talking about. If there's an observer that has to do with the entorno, okay, if there's an observer that has to do with the entorno, it touches the solar code. So the ALL anchors on the solar code if the reach is through the entorno. If the reach is through the entorno and more, it touches the solar code. Yes, the ALL becomes it begins to have contact with the solar code. So there, if I have that, then I can have a neutral criteria. Neutral criteria, where I'm gonna be able to have a new balanced interaction as a human with the rest of the species. Okay. Okay, back to the concepts. Always, always, always back to the concepts. If there is conceptual or conceptual base is properly being constructed, then these points upstairs are gonna be the ones working and activating when the signal comes. Yeah. So if depending on the concepts, then we have a stimulation, we have a signal. Then the first logical point that turns on is the species. Then, sorry, the entorno. The first one that turns on is the entorno. Then the species, then the clan, then the personal. Okay, and when it touches the personal, then I work my way down. But I'm modulating. It is very different when this happens. I start to modulate and organize the order list, remember? Because upstairs we are receiving in an ordered list. And then when we modulate and we work our way down, we are working with ordering the list. Yeah? So the creation of concepts is so important because they are the only thing that is gonna create the resistance to the historical registrations. Anteponer, yeah, I can't find that specific word, but like the concepts are the ones that are gonna be in the middle of the stimulation going directly to the memorials. So that we don't get these automatic responses.
Thank you, Denise. I have to go.
Okay, Gerhe, nice to see you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. We're almost on the break. Once we reach, well, not really. Once we reach page 9, we're in the middle. We're on page 6, and we have a little break, okay? It is a little long. This is very long. So hopefully you guys can stay. If not, I'll just continue and you guys can watch the recording. Okay. Oh, my cat is hungry. So that was Alejandra's answer for the person that asked where the processor in the body is. Nothing to do with the body. Nothing to do with the body. The body's a receiver. Okay. So what Ale is helping us with and helping us with this formation is our capacity to sink into. Is the word syntonies? Yeah, tuning into specific frequencies. Yes, because we are working with our antennas. So what do antennas do? They sink into specific frequencies. The thing is that we want to learn to modulate our antenna and capacitate our antenna to be able to modulate better and sink into specific frequencies and not ourselves, and not allowing our antennas to be modulated by whatever is out there. Yes. Okay, so here, okay, she also said, okay, we have this and then we have this, right? So this is going to be our capacity to capitalize and communicate. Because remember, the re-axis is something that has to do with our connection. And it is our connection and our consciousness. So it is going to be something that is practically impossible to transfer to each other. So we communicate in the attempt of communicating to each other our our connection, yes? But it doesn't necessarily have to be the case. Like I don't have to be able to communicate in order to have a connection. So, but here's where she explains it. She says, so if I'm doing this, right, what she's been explaining, but linearly in relation to the past, that's going to translate into a capacity to capitalize and then communicate. Okay, so we have a stimulation and a capacity to respond in re. But then if we move that to ro, then that translates into our capacity to capitalize what has occurred and then communicate what has occurred. So to capitalize, she says, okay, I am here, and then I capitalize here, and then I communicate. And then I capitalize here, and I communicate. Capitalize here, communicate. Capitalize here, communicate. Okay? So to the left, we capitalize. To the right, we communicate. So when we're talking about re, we have this situation of sinking into or tuning into. But all of these things in re are happening all at once. That is the difference between re and ro. In ro, things don't happen all at once. We have cycles, we have processes, we have sequences. We're working section by section. And in ro, like the main qualities of ro are capitalization and communication. Okay, and the capitalization is to the left because remember the past is what gives us anchor, right? So we capitalize and we are able to stand on that so that I can use that later. Now, if I'm not able to capitalize, then I am going to be working with the reactives all the time. Reactives, 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 reactives. So I'm going to be communicating without being able to connect. There's not like, and I'm sure that we can observe this didactically all around us. People that talk without being connected. Yes, because they talk and the only thing that comes out of their mouth are things that they pull out from the memorials because that's the only thing they have access to. Okay? Okay. The thing like the crazy part here is that this is like a universal resource and they don't have access to it only because they don't want to, only because they have no interest, not because anybody's more special. Okay. So re is first because we're talking about connection. Communication is later because we're talking about ro. So yeah, we can connect without being able to communicate. This is why it is important. I was telling some of you all that probably next year that we're going to have some changes in the group because we want to integrate this part of lateralization. Yeah. But this is all going to be in private so that we have a more stable area where we can work in our constructive in the construction of our communication in relation to these concepts. Okay. Yes, and this happens like I'm sure it happens to all of you guys when usually I don't talk about LGC with anybody. I like I always say like I'm a double agent because I have this secret identity. But when somebody asks, right, or they see something, it's like, oh my goodness, I don't even know where to start. Yes, because we are talking about how can I describe to somebody that has only a third dimensional profile what my re-axis is? And all the things that happen simultaneously in the re-axis and that happen outside of language first. These things happen outside of language first. Then we are able to communicate them. So here's another thing that we can add. The broca, remember we work with broca and wernik, right? Broca is our capacity to communicate, and wernik has more to do with the ri, when there's no communication. Okay, if there is no intuition that counteracts instinct, then the construction of meaning is going to be automatic. The instinct provides us with a safe construction of meaning, a safe response, because it is directly connected with the memories. So if my intuition is not predominant, I'm not going to be able to neutralize the instincts because the instincts basically are reactives. Yeah? Instincts basically are reactives. Like the reflex when I'm dropping something and I catch it in the air, those are automatic responses. Yes? Instinct, on the other hand, is something that I tune into. It's a signal from the future that I tune into. Yes? It's an anticipation. So instinct has to do with the points that are from the negative, and intuition is going to be more something that has to do more with the positive re. And the unified field is something that is going to act by defect, like by default. It's going to have a default setting, a default set of automatic responses. Yeah, because it's containing so many things. It is like it's back. It is something that provides the stability. Yes, everything that when we talk about on is what provides stability to the unified field and everything inside it. So it is very important, right? We just have to locate it and describe it and identify it as it should be. Now, if I use my membership to the universe, which is very different to my membership to the species, then I am managing an interface, an intermediate instance, and I am counteracting the instinct or the reactives constantly. But I do that. I am only able to do that with my membership to the universe. So, instinct, intuition. When something is let's see, something is happening in real time, and I am identifying that whatever is happening looks a little bit like something in the past. I don't want to focus on how much it resembles the past. I want to focus on the variables that are new in that situation. That is an example of intuition counteracting instinct. Because it's automatic. The fastest thing that's going to happen is like, oh, this is like, I don't know, this still happens to me when I have an argument with Francisco. Oh, this is exactly like 2 years ago. You're doing the exact same thing. And then I'm like, wait, no, it's not exactly the same. It's not exactly the same. Come on, don't. But automatically, the responses come out, right? So this is where intuition counterbalances instinct. So intuition makes instinct run slowly. It because the instinct is automatic. So if I am predominantly intuitive, then I'm going to open a space of observation for the instinct. So it's not going to be as automatic. And this can happen only if the member of the universe is operating on the captation, modulation, and processing for the member of the species. So the antenna member of the universe is the one that has the capacity to do that. Exactly. Pulse instead of impulse. Exactly. This is a very good, we can relate that. When we are acting by pulse, we are acting, modulating, captating with our consciousness. But if there's an impulse, there's a dragging from the collective memories. I am not participating in the modulation of anything. I'm just being dragged around everywhere. And nobody likes to be dragged around, right? Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, pulse and impulse. So here Alejandra continues to talk about how her understanding of the physical body is extremely superficial. Yeah, in my case too. And honestly, it's when I am working on LGC, I honestly don't need to understand the body and I haven't needed that yet. Maybe later, but not yet, because we are working on abstract infrastructure, which is something that we don't have. We are working on constructing something that we don't have or didn't have. We are beginning to have it, which is good news for everyone. So she says, everything that I teach is by sinking into or tuning into captations, tuning into frequencies. So the capacity of communication of Alejandra slowly grows, is growing slowly. And we have seen her progress in the communication of all of this. Yes. But the thing is that it is the external source, the one that is controlling all the variables to make Alejandra take action. And so that that action that Alejandra takes every single second is the action that needs to happen every single second. But it is the external source, the one controlling the variables. And external source here, we are talking about the Andromedian signal, LGC. Yes, the educational signal. Here she's just saying like, all of these things are obvious. And here's a difference between what's obvious and what's evident. Something can be obvious, but if it's not talked about, like the elephant in the room, I don't know, in a dysfunctional family in Christmas dinner, and nobody talks about past traumas and past situations, there's an elephant in the room and it's obvious, but no one talks about, so nobody makes it evident. Then the eldest daughter is born and is able to confront somebody in the family and is like, yo, 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 and she makes it evident. That's like a very local example. Making the obvious evident. Making it evident has to do with being able to communicate something that is obvious. Yeah. Like somebody asking me to explain what intuition is. I'm like, how can I explain what intuition is? Okay, I'm gonna try. But it's like asking me how it feels like to drink water. How does it feel to drink water, you guys? Can you explain that? Oh, just drink water and you'll know what it feels like. Intuition is something like that for me, right? So I'm like, okay, how can I explain? Okay, I'll make it evident for somebody that doesn't have it as obvious as I do. That's also an example, you know? But sometimes it becomes a little tricky or hard to explain something that it's obvious. Now imagine in the case of Alejandra, all of these things that we're always asking her, for her it's like it's obvious for her and she's doing her best to communicate it for us. She's doing it all the time. Okay, so first I tune my antenna, then I describe. That is why also in our groups where we want to learn to sync into all of these things better, we want to be synced into the specific frequency. Because if not, nothing's gonna make sense. Because if I'm using my neurology and I want to describe everything inside what I already have. No. I want to sink into the frequency and then later work on the description. Because if I'm only focusing on the description, but my antenna is not tuned, I'm not going to understand anything anyway, because I'm not synced into the frequency. So how can I describe anything if I'm not sinking into anything? The thing is that usually in the third dimension, people have a specific license of ignorance. Yes, in relation to everything that allows that person to be existing, they have ignorance licenses. So we always talk about this also, like respect for the scopes of everybody else. Yeah, we don't want to go around defying everybody. If we are going around defying others, it means that I am not defying myself. Yes, I want to defy myself. I don't want to be going around defying others. I want to respect where others are. And specifically, if we can understand the fact that they are only having third dimensional profiles, then I have to respect that. So when that is the case, the unified field uses that position to resolve its own balances. So if there's a third dimensional profile, no antenna working, the unified field uses that position to resolve its own balances, while the social algorithm provides a response, a random response from the catalog of responses. I mean, for some people that's exciting and they like that, to just the adventurers of the world, and yeah, they just go into the world and they're like, let's see what the world has for me. Random. Yeah, that is the collective, the unified field responding to that position with a catalog of responses. Yeah, and that's fine because there's going to be some occurrences that are here for that. And they're going to be here to test the quality of the code. Yeah, in our case, we are going to be in charge of stabilizing the third dimension and documenting faults and failures so that we can improve the quality of the code and the quality of the infrastructure that, of course, we are going to be experimenting, but others are going to be experimenting as well. So we are working on a collective construction, a collective improvement. Also, one thing Alejandra said in the event was that we were the fourth dimension embassy in the third dimension. The embassy of the fourth dimension in the third dimension. Which means, what does that mean? It means the fourth dimension in relation to the third has to do. I was so happy for the win of Spain for this reason, because the embassy of the fourth dimension inside the third dimension has to do with a responsibility to argument the continuity of the third dimension, because it's not going to be working based on memories anymore. So we have to argument the continuity of the third dimension. That's our responsibility. And that's a lot, right? That's a lot of responsibility to take on. So when I heard Spain, when I saw Spain win, that is the first thing that I thought. I was like, okay, fourth dimension embassy in the third dimension. Okay. Now, we can also see the way that profiles that only have the member of the species usually have a wide communication spectrum. Yes, they can communicate very widely. Yes, there is this guy that I like to listen to because he informs me on strict materialistic, social, very, very clear information. And I really love to listen to him because he informs me on the social very strictly. And he has this amazing capacity to communicate to a large amount of people with a lot of facts. He's amazing, really. But the thing is that the essence of the member of the universe is outside. Yes, he's only like he has an amazing connection to the unified field and he can explain it brilliantly, but that's all there is for him. There is nothing more. So the essence of the member of the universe is like outside. Basically, his antenna of the universe is like this, like hey hey hey, let me in, let me in. He's like no no no, no. But also that's a role. Yes, that's a really specific role that he has, and it's very important too. So there are different roles, there are different configurations. The member of the universe is gonna oppose, is gonna be the opposite of whatever we have in the collective memory, because it's here to create novelties, to create improvements. So when we are working with, wait, hold on. Okay, when we are working on this recognition of the member of the universe, then our intuition is going to be more predominant. There's going to have more of a presence than the instinct. The instinct is going to be losing protagonism, we can say. But for the member of the species, the instinct is going to be predominant. Yes, and we're not criminalizing the member of the species because, then this is a really good news for everybody, when a member of the species gets the itch, they're gonna want to scratch. And when they get the itch, they're gonna find this whole universe literally at the touch of their hand. Yeah, like really, really closely. I have friends, like friends that are really, really close to me, and they see absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. They only see a projection of themselves when they see me. And I'm like, oh, and they are in these problems and there's these dilemmas, and I'm like, oh, if you could only please just listen to me for one little second, I could help you. But no, if the window doesn't open, I have to respect that. And I do. And I do. But the minute that they get the itch, they can scratch. So this is great. This is really, really great. Um, and Ali also says this, like, if I have the itch, I'm not gonna go around scratching everybody else because they're gonna perceive that as an aggression, of course. Like scratching. No, I'm having the itch. Okay. So if any member of the species gets the itch, then immediately the subatomic instance is going to touch the instinct, like penetrate the instinct, and that person's gonna keep resonating. It's gonna get the resonance. Yeah. Of course, we're gonna see how this happens for the rest of us that didn't have this early resonance, because we're all gonna have different roles. Now, a lot of people have said in their processes that LGC made them useless, right? And I think we have all experienced this at some point in our process. I, of course, recognize like in the early stages of my process, I felt completely useless, completely unable to communicate with anybody, completely unable to have any type of capacity to respond in the context, nothing. I was like basically dead for some years, right? Yes, and this happens because we disconnected from the automatic variables of survival. Yes, from the memorials, because we are beginning this dissociation. Because in order for us to develop that other area, there needs to be this dissociation. But we're not gonna stay stupid and useful. No, because we are constructing resources. Okay, when we feel stupid and useful, it's useless. It's because we are constructing resources that are our own in the antimatter. We are constructing new resources. So whenever I feel stupid or dumb, I can just calm myself down and be like, okay, I'm just working. I'm working on myself at another level. So it is like the little avatar is like turned off for a second. But then we get all these, wow, oh, these new understanding and all these new capacities inside the little avatar, like the Matrix, right? Okay, now we have this other this other part is crazy. I mean, we're only in page 8, you guys, and this is a very dense. I think this is one of the densest programs that I have encountered, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, we've encountered quite dense ones, but this one is really dense. So we'll get through this page and then we'll go to a little break and then come back. It's gonna be long. Okay. So here we're gonna begin working with the table of elements, beginning with the hydrogen bridge. LGC, what is LGC doing? It's representing the primary unfoldment. And the most important representant of the primary unfoldment would be the little hydrogen. Okay, hydrogen is the only one that has access between matter and antimatter, between primary and secondary unfoldment. So the hydrogen, the consciousness of the hydrogen is the representant of the primary unfoldment. But that needs to have an administrator. And that administrator is what we call the helium. And the helium has a task that has to do with the functionalization between the primary and secondary unfoldment. There's an administrative instance. Helium and hydrogen work together for the functionalization of this communication between matter and antimatter, or primary and secondary unfoldment. So the 30 spaces of the hydrogen bridge represent the 30 criteria of stability that the development of the secondary unfoldment is gonna need, that the expressed matter is gonna need. It's gonna need 30 criteria of stability. Yes, so these 30 spaces are gonna represent that, criteria of stability. Now, when she says criteria of stability inside matter or inside existence, also we have to include that there are different levels of existence. There are different levels of materialization, which we represent on the levels of, on the criteria of densification of the table, which are the ones that are horizontal. Yes, horizontal, the lines on the table that run horizontally are the criteria of density. The ones that run vertically from left to right, that's the criteria of stability. And the reason for this is the most unstable elements are on the left and the most stable elements are on the right. Same with the density criteria. The most dense are on the bottom and the most light are on the top. Yeah, because hydrogen has one atom. Yeah, and the rest have all these complex, so they become more dense. Okay, so here we are working a lot with the position of 177, which is when this program was recorded. See, the program is not an information, it's a tuning into. We're tuning into something, okay? So the position of 177 is under promise 18. Now, in this instance, because we are talking about the interface between matter and antimatter, 8 in this instance is not going to be an occurrence. I mean, it's not going to be a program. It's going to be an occurrence. Yes, it's not a program yet because it needs to go through more levels of densification to become a program. In that instance, that's an occurrence. So here we have position 18, the promise 18, and this is space 136. Remember, we began with Toganeson, which is 119, and then we end with 148, which is the hydrogen bridge, the connection, the end of the hydrogen bridge that touches hydrogen, the hydrogen, 148. Okay, so we are in the middle now. we can take a 15-minute break, you guys, and we'll be right back. Wait, no, my headphones are not connected. 1 second. Can somebody say something to see if my hello my
Yeah,
headphones?
your mic is working, Denise.
Okay, thank you. Headphones too. Okay. So we are on the hydrogen bridge, and we were just saying how the consciousness of the hydrogen is going to represent, it's going to be the representant of the primary unfoldment, right? And the part of the helium is going to have this quality of administration of that. Administration of the 30 criteria of stability for what later is going to become existence or materialization. There's going to also be different levels of materialization. So what we have here is the 26th of June, which is the day where this program was recorded, is the day 177 of the year, and we can find that spot here under the promise of 18 in the periodic table of elements. Now, here we have another thing that we can add is that the spaces in black, the first spaces in black, which are 149, 150, 151, and 152, the first block of foundational places in the periodic table, begin under the promise, under the sixth promise. Yeah? Here I didn't put the table, but like, let me open it so you guys can see. So she's saying the first space, this first foundational spaces on the table begin under the promise number 6. Yes, this is what she's saying right here. And what we are working with on this program is step 177, which is under promise 18. Yeah, so this is what she's saying, just so that we have a visual orientation of that. I forgot to put it on the document. So we have been working quite a lot with this concept of the collective memory. Yeah. So we have the 26th of the 6th, and then we have the first foundational spaces that begin on the 6th promise. We're talking about both of these have qualities that are related to the collective memory. Oh, here's the table. I did put it. Okay, so as we said earlier, the word Planeta Mercurio adds up to 177. And the word Mercurio adds up to 106. And 106 is 76, like all of these spaces, 76 plus 30. 30 plus 76, we get 106. And the reading of this is the solar agenda. Okay? The solar agenda. Okay. Now, on the event, we worked with this invention, the invention of the periodic table full of nothing. So we have a matrix of 224 spaces in black without any content in it. Okay. Also, I didn't put it here. This one I didn't. So I think I'm going to put it just because I think Molly and Marceline haven't seen it. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but this one, okay? So this is the matrix, no, not matrix, matriz, the matriz of 224 spaces. Yes, and these are spaces in black, and these are foundational spaces. This is where the observer is going to provide the hosting for what later is going to develop as a content inside there, okay? This is what she's talking about. The matrix of, no, the matriz of 224 spaces. Okay, so after we have the matriz of 224 spaces, we place the elements the same way that scientists did, yes, with the criteria of density and stability. So we have 118 elements, and then to that matriz of 224, if we remove those 118 spaces, that's where we get 106, right? So she says, I am a particle, but I am a particle that hasn't broken its link with the primary unfoldment. The primary unfoldment does not break the link with any particle. But if we are here in the anatomic instance and we over-identify with a member of the species, with the memories, and we put on ourselves all of the memorials of the species, all of the memorials of the clan, then we are not going to be able to respond to the stimulations that we're going to be exposed to with primary resources. We're not going to be able to respond with primary resources. Why? Because we are only identifying with a member of the species. Okay? And then everything that's left out, then I just fill it out with random beliefs. It doesn't matter what belief it is, the whatever belief that I like from the catalog of beliefs. I'm going to fill everything that's left out, like from the member of the species. And everything that's left out of that, then I'm just going to fill it up with random beliefs from the catalog of beliefs. And I am going to be resolving these influences randomly because all I want is to keep stability. Yeah. So I'm going to choose from whatever's available in the memorials of the container to keep a certain stability when I'm being exposed to all of these situations, right? So here we have 224 minus 118, we get 106. Yeah. And then to 106, we remove the 30 spaces of the hydrogen bridge, we get 76. So this is also hyperconvergent. The 76 spaces in black are the 76 foundational spaces, okay? So she says, we are finding all of the concepts that we have been working on for years. We are finding them all together on the table. Yes, on the table, everything is linked together. The thing is that it is the only thing that is recent is that the unified field is showing us all of these things that Alejandra showed us loosely, like one here, one over here, one over here. She showed us like that. The unified field is showing them to us all together. Yes, always united. They were always united. But remember that it is the unified field, the one in charge of unifying everything. Okay. Now, here she makes a really cool example. She says, whomever hasn't lost resonance with the elements, no, whoever hasn't lost the resonance can have all these loose elements and can work with the elements to create something. Yeah. An example for this is I go into the kitchen and I have loose elements. But if I have no Wi-Fi on or no inspiration, then all I'm going to see is the loose elements. And that person is going to be like, oh, there's nothing to eat. Instead, me, for example, if I have like a carrot and a pickle and like some beef, then I create a meal for myself, with whatever I have. But if there's somebody that enters that kitchen and that can't find any inspiration, then what is it going to do? It's going to call the unified field and it's going to ask for a completed meal to come because I have no connection with the loose elements, so that I cannot create anything for myself. Okay? So there's no creativity. I call the unified field and I want the unified field to bring it already made for me. So when I do that, I'm not going to have the connection with the loose elements and I'm not going to have a connection with the creativity to create and make create the meal, right? Now, here She says there's an adjustment between restriction and liberty. If I enter the kitchen and I have a relationship with each and every one of those elements, and I have inspiration, and then I create that meal. But if I don't have that relationship, I see elements, I can create anything new, I call it delivery. So this adjustment between restriction and freedom. Now, some are going to interpret that freedom of, yes, I have the freedom to call every day and somebody can make the meal for me. But the freedom of having connection with the loose elements and having the freedom to enter the kitchen and create something for myself every single time. That's where she means there's an adjustment between restriction and liberty. Okay, this is also very technical, you guys. She starts talking about the promises that the reason why she named these promises, these spaces, she named them promises, was because at some point she was studying JavaScript. JavaScript we know, is a programming language for the web. Yeah, we all use the web, so we unconsciously have all been into contact with JavaScript. So from all of these promises, on the day 177, we are pulling, she's saying, excuse me, we are pulling from promise 18. And here she makes a really specific, this is a very detailed characteristic of promise 18. She's saying that promise 18 is the one that links the connection with all the other promises. There's a synchronization with all the other promises simultaneously. So this is a quality of promise 18 specifically. It's like a really, really specific. It is a prophet, like boarding the table very professionally. This is what Alejandra's doing, okay? It's a very specific thing. Okay, so then she talks about the fact that every month of June, JavaScript publishes the updates, the new things that it provides for all the novelties that the language of JavaScript is going to have. Yes, so JavaScript publishes every month of June, and the last one that they published was the 25th of June of 2025, which is the last day of Lab 18. Okay, and these papers are called ECMAScript. ECMAScript. Okay, now. What she did is that she downloaded the ECMAScript for the 25th of June of 2025, and she wanted to find where, because I think that's when the promises were added specifically. Yes, there is a specific addition or update in relation to the promises in the programming language of JavaScript. So what she does here is she says, we have space 177, which corresponds to the 26th of June, which is the first day of Lab 12. And then we have the 25th of June, which corresponds to the last day of Lab 11, okay? Which is when that ECMAScript was published, which is day 176. So we can find place 176 right here under promise 17 and 177 here under promise 18, okay? And then she says there are 177 days between the 25th of June and the 19th of December, which is day 353, which is a processor, yeah? Which is when we enter the Ring of Fire in Calendaria. So between the last day of Lab 11 and the first day of the Ring of Fire, we have 177 days, okay? She makes this emphasis on this. Okay. What is day 353? This day is outside of our matriz. Yes, our matriz extended because we have the matriz of materialization has 224 spaces. But then we have our extended matriz that includes -2 and -1, and that is a matriz of 352 spaces. Okay? Day 353 is outside of that extended matriz. Okay? So between 176 and 353, we have 177. Now, to clarify a little bit the concept of processor, there's going to be a processor that's going to be working with the memories, and there's going to be a processor working. There's going to be a processor working with the antenna. One second. Okay, so we're going to have a processor dealing with the antenna and a processor dealing with the memorials. Okay, so one for the member of the species and one for the member of the universe. Now, the antenna of the universe gives a treat. The member of the species is going to give a different treatment to the memorials than the treatment that the member of the universe is going to give the memorials, the treatment. Yes, the member of the universe is going to treat the memorials as something appropriated. The member of the species is going to take it as mine. Yes, they're mine. I put inside myself all of the memorials that I can find. They're mine. Like anything someone else before me did is a triumph for me because I am taking as my own all of these memorials. But the member of the universe, no, it's different. The treatment is appropriated. Okay, it's a different instance of reasoning. Now, when we are able to find the difference between giving it an appropriated treatment and a treatment that is my own, I'm going to be able to respond in a very differentiated way. I'm going to be responding either from the memory of the collective or by tuning into with my antenna or with the memory, right? Okay, so here is like in very technical terms, what JavaScript represents this situation of the promises. And there's a command in JavaScript in the programming called promise.try. Yeah, promise try. Promise try is a command where I'm gonna make a petition and the program is gonna try to respond to that petition the best way it can. Because remember what the promises are. The promises are spaces that are prepared to receive a flow of signals and that have the task of trying to translate those signals into consumable in a consumable format for the last user. Okay, so promise try is going to be a command that I am going to there's going to be a petition and the promises are going to try to respond to that petition. Yes, promise try. So why is it so important to try? Yes, the try part. It is so important because we are in a critical moment of the space-temporal structures. It is a critical moment for the space-temporal structures where we are working with the argumentation so that our species can continue to have license to continue to exist inside this container. Before that, it was all given by biological programs. Now we have to actively document, consciously argument why we want to continue on board. Yes, what we were saying earlier, the fourth dimension embassy inside the third. So before, because we were all working through programs, nobody was questioning when people were like, oh, I need to find a wife, I need to have a family, I need to find a job. All of these things were pre-programmed in our biological memorials. Those memorials are slowly turning off. It's like slowly turning off. So now we have to consciously argument why we want to continue the species inside this container. And then she talks a lot about how She says that the global population is decreasing. This is a specific, like the global population is decreasing, decreasing. It is not decreasing yet, but it is growing more slowly. I mean, the global population is still growing at this moment, but the rhythm of growth is slowing down. I mean, it's not diminishing yet, okay? It is estimated here. I double checked that fact and I found that it is estimated by the linearly, of course, that by year 2080, we will begin to see this decrease in the global population, but not yet. We're not there yet. So why is this happening? Because we have a immense cosmic influence coming our way. We are experiencing so many influences coming our way. But these influences are here to train us in our interdimensional infrastructure, in working with our antenna to be able to anticipate and capitalize all of these situations. Okay. So the species is at risk when all we have in the young generations is this argument of, oh, I don't have time to have a kid because all I want to do is have fun and I want to experience life and all I want to do is experience life, so I have no time to raise a child. Now, when that argument is installed in the young generations, then the species is at risk. Because what we have to do now is argument consciously why we need to continuate our species. Because it's not going to happen automatically. Now, back to the promise-try. Yes, what we want to do, and because we are specifically locating ourselves in under the promise of 18, which pools all of the promises criteria of stability simultaneously. She says, when I say promise try, it has to do with pulling all of those promises to provide simultaneous stability. Because if I don't do that, I like everybody's gonna be interpreting that they don't have time, that they don't have time for a child because there's no stability. There's not enough stability. It's like it is enough. Like I can barely deal with myself. How can I even think about bringing a child into this world? This is an issue of the criteria of stability. Yes, the criteria of stability and the lack of space inside the memory to develop a life. So that is translated socially as an interpretation of I don't have time to have a family. I barely have time to develop my own life. Okay? So if there is no pooling of the 30 columns with this criteria of stability, then I'm just going to be like, no, I can't do this. This is something that I can't do. So this thing with promise try is going to be pulling from all of the promises, the 30 criteria of stability. So there, when I have enough stability, then I'm like, okay, I can have a child. Yes. For me personally, I've been working with this for a while now. Yes. And now I can understand and actually argument technically that I haven't been able to pull enough stability to become or to have a family. Yes. The criteria of stability in my personal receiver hasn't been enough. Now I can argument it technically. But then I'm like, oh, if I am able to pool criteria like the 30 criteria of stability, then maybe I'm going to have enough stability to do it. Nowadays, our species depends on our intention. If we don't have an intention of having a family, then of course it's not going to happen automatically. We need to find stability to the matter from the antimatter. And this is something that only a consciousness from the particular scale can do. Yes, only a subatomic scale consciousness can generate stability to the matter inside from antimatter and then bring it to the social context. Okay, so promise.try. I'm going to try to have an intention. I'm going to try to have an intention. And what we manifested in Event 74, the intention that we manifested in Event 74 was, I will not abandon myself. Okay, that's an intention. And then, okay, I translated that. I translated this into English in text. I put it in the channel. So back to Pluto. We've been working a lot with Pluto. 248 terrestrial years have to go by so that Pluto has goes one trip around its own orbit. So this means I think Pluto was discovered in 1930. This means that since Pluto was discovered, it hasn't gone once around. Yeah, but we do know that in year 2232, Pluto finishes its ninth lap around the sun. And this is something that I really, really love. An understanding of Pluto's elliptical orbit. Yes, Pluto is the last orbit of the solar system, and it is really elliptical, meaning it's not as circular as the rest. So it goes out into the universe to pick up some of the novelties and then brings them back to the inside of the local solar system, so that the solar consciousness is anticipated and it can be prepared, because we know that the sun is moving in through the universe. Yes, and it needs to be prepared and codify properly enough so that it can, and when it encounters what it needs to encounter, it is prepared, right? So here we have the ECMA document, okay? And we can find this update of promise.try in this segment of the document, which is 2727, which is alma in Spanish, soul. And then we have 248. 248, okay? So 248 has to do with how many terrestrial years Pluto needs to go one lap around the sun. And this is where we find promise.try, okay? It's very specific and also very technical. So promise.try, promise, try, and do it with an intention. Because what you're going to be bringing here needs to be inside the standard of our solar code. This whole era of just pulling whatever occurrences I could get my hands on and manifesting any brilliant ideas because I thought I was so brilliant. No, I wasn't brilliant. The humans weren't brilliant. I only had access to pulling whatever occurrence that I had and then using the earth as a printer. That's basically it. It's not the same now. Because now to manifest that occurrence, it needs to be inside the standard of the solar code. We're going to be creating qualities to our solar code, to which we're going to be expanding the nature of our sun. That is the scope that the human species has. But the species with particular scope. So we have, this is the scope that a member of the species has, but a member of the species that has a primary identity in the member of the universe. So a member of the universe is going to have a scope with a profile, human profile inside the third dimension to expand the nature of our sun. This is extreme, you guys. Extreme. We are going to be creating qualities to our solar code with which we're going to be expanding the nature of our sun. It's beautiful, really. Okay, so we can see there 27 and then 248. Yes. And the reading that we make to 248 is, we want your occurrence to have a destiny so that your circuit can implement it. When we see 4 with 2, we can always read it as a circuit that allows that destiny to take place, okay? To happen. Okay, so here there is a consciousness that transcends us all and interconnects us in a very infinite and perfect way. And we are on board, and we have the wonderful privilege to sequence, to be there presently observing how the sequence takes place. This is what we are doing. Yes, we have a front row seat to how all of this is being sequenced. It is a wonderful privilege. So what I always say to anybody that I talk to inside the logic, I'm like, please don't waste this opportunity. It is amazing. What we are doing is we are expanding ourselves in our interdimensional structures. Yes, like SpongeBob growing in Ri. Okay, now there is a connection between lab 18 and lab 11 because they happen on the same how can I say it? Yeah, on the same column of the table. Yeah, because we know that after lab 15 the we are done with the 2 to 4 matriz and we begin working with the extended one vertically. So by the time we get to lab 8 quadrant NO, the NO quadrant of lab 18, we come back to the promise 17. Okay, so there's a connection between this specific point of lab 18 with the 10th of the 10th, which is humano humano. Yeah, the third step of the NO cardinality in lab 18 is the 10th of the 10th. Okay, so both of these things happen in the same column, which is the promise 17. So here's lab 18. We have these 4 spaces. These 4 spaces happen on that column of the 17th promise. Okay, so from lab 15, what we do, because we are working with the extended matriz, she says, ay, poner en jaque, ¿cómo se diría poner en jaque? Like challenging. Yes, we could say challenging. Lab 18 is gonna challenge the column that has the promise 17. And of course, it's gonna happen with all the other ones, yes, but we're talking specifically about the 17 now. Lab 18 is gonna challenge the column that has promise 17. We find day 10 of the 10th, which is Mendelevium. Yeah, we can see that it's Mendelevium. Yeah, this is right here. So she's saying Mendeleev was vacant 90 in 71, in event 71. In event 71, Dmitry Mendeleev was there because if you guys in the events, we have the presence of non-living antennas constantly. Non-living antennas come to the events and we can see them technically, yes, in the structure. So Mendeleev was vacant 90 in event 71. Hopefully we don't get any people that are not resonating in this video because they're gonna think we're really weird. But okay, so what Alejandra's saying is like Mendeleev is not before or after. We are working with Mendeleev. Yes, Mendeleev is with us, working with us. It is a function at this point, a function of the structure. Okay, so what is 10 of the 10? It is a creation in the matter and a creation in the antimatter. Okay, because if we don't have that, we're not going to have this criteria of stability, dynamic stability. Yes, because we're talking about a dynamic stability if we are working both with matter and antimatter. There's going to be a certain stability, but that stability needs to have the capacity to update, which this is what was interfered with in apparatus 396. Yes, the capacity to update the static according to the solar standards was interfered. Yeah, so that generated a sardine tin box for us. So 10 of the 10 is a creation of matter and a creation of the antimatter to be able to work with this criteria of dynamic stability. Dynamic stability. But we are forming ourselves to be able to modulate this, to be able to administrate this dynamic stability. If we don't form ourselves properly, then we are going to be managed. Yes, our dynamic stability is going to be managed, and that's going to translate to being inside the wave like this all the time. Like this, like this, like this, feeling like I have no control whatsoever with my life. Now, in our case, we are in a process, of course, that happens to me still all the time. But at least I know that I am working on myself, in my other infrastructure. And that in that the level of of that diminishes as I am able to progress. Okay, at least we know that we are progressing a little bit. But for others that are not, imagine how hard it is to just be like that all the time and not understanding a thing of what's happening to them. Okay, so here she talks, of course, we always talk about apparatus 396 and the anomalies in lab 18, where there were 10 days removed. And Alejandra has provided different treatments for this. But this is the last one, right? We assigned the spaces in the table that correspond to this point in lab 18, right? Something that we are keeping in mind all of apparatus 507 is this constant with apparatus 396. But 2026 is I think it's the most important year of apparatus 507 because it is the one that has direct connection with 1582, with those 444 years. Okay, so the opportunity that 2026 has of this recreation of the y-axis depends on the repairing of apparatus 396 because that's going to depend our capacity to assimilate what has occurred, and so that we are able to capitalize what has occurred and be able to construct the improvements based on that. If I'm not able to assimilate what has occurred, I'm not going to be able to create any improvements. So, okay, it's 111 apparatuses of different. 507 has 111 apparatuses different from 396. So this, what we are seeing here is a route for interference, but it's also a route for a really big opportunity in multidimensional growth and multidimensional consciousness. So if we are not busy with this and being responsible with our resonance, then we are going to miss this really huge opportunity, and it's going to turn to risk. Well, the good news is that as the structure improves, then of course the experience for the contents is not going to be like that. Yeah. But we're talking about a transition right now. The transition is what holds this huge risk opportunity situation. Yeah. I hope that later we enter into a more stable instance. So Alejandra has been saying this, like, don't worry, this is a training. This is a training. It's not going to be like this forever. So let's just take the opportunity because hopefully later we will enter into a more stable part of the structure of the space-temporal instance. So the risk associated to this opportunity is that we either enter into high levels of manipulation collectively. We've been seeing this with everything that people want to do with artificial intelligence, or with high opportunities of change, a highly evolutionary step. This is the risk and opportunity that we're facing right now. The signal is like this, like it's really, really strict right now. And we can't take any pauses because there's an algorithm that we are following. Yeah. So, for me, since I came back from the event, oh my goodness, I can't even I can't even explain to you guys the rhythm. It is crazy, really crazy. We're almost finished, okay? 2 more pages. So here we're gonna look at the 10th of the 10th, the metrics of the 10th of the 10th, which is, we're looking at the wheat, the Google, and all of that, the LGC calendar. Now, the LGC calendar in the total, we can find, look at this, 44121. 44121. 121 is equilibrio, equilibrium in Spanish. Yes, and 44 is all of the destinies. So all of the destinies in equilibrium on the 10th of the 10th. So this, what is this? It's an anticipation. Yes, it's an anticipation to not lose track of the rhythm of the algorithm, because we are riding a wave of opportunity and we have to be tuning into our antenna so that we don't miss it. Don't allow ourselves to get distracted by all the magnetism in the unified field and all the memories and all of that. Okay, because there's a high opportunity to create equilibrium from here to the 10th of the 10th and to grow our re-access. Like, there's a high opportunity. And I hadn't understood Alejandra. Alejandra has been talking about scalar growth for 14 years, and I've been here for 10, and I hadn't understood that until this year, what that means. Because it's absolutely incredible to enter that. But we have to be tuning our antennas into that. Because remember, it's subtle. It's subtle. It's so easy to get distracted. Okay. So in the wheat, we can find 58950. We find the frequency of amparo. Amparo is like something that has your back. Amparo is something that has your back. Yes? When, I don't know, you used all of your reach and it wasn't enough. Then you search for an amparo, something to hold you while you reconstruct yourself. That's frecuencia de amparo. Yeah. So in the wheat, on the 10th of the 10th, we have that frequency 598, which is what Alejandra calls frecuencia de amparo. Inside 50, which is a structure. 5 with 0 is a structure. So she says, my mind updates, because we have 5 with 8. 5 with 8. My mind is able to update before my structure is broken. Before the structure breaks, I want to update my mind. Okay? So she says, take note of this, because we have until the 10th of the 10th to take advantage of this opportunity. Remember that the wheat is the social use of the resources in real time of the earth. So we have 41214 in the total of the LGC calendar. The LGC calendar is this interdimensional infrastructure with it is a resource we have that it is a resource of antimatter. It is a resource of antimatter that we have to be updating in this interdimensional infrastructure. I think the LGC calendar is one of the most complex resources we have, well, apart from the periodic table, of course. Of course, the periodic table is the most complex, but like the LGC calendar is also very, very complex. But we can just take note of the fact that it is an interdimensional infrastructure, okay? So yeah, other metrics. So she says, this is a lot. I know this is a lot. But the clarification of the concept is so that we are able to have better tuning in, yes, better tuning of our antennas to increase our intuition, counteract our instinct, and be able to modulate whatever we find in the collective memory. So it doesn't mean that we won't be interacting with the collective memory. Of course, like in my case, I'm like, yes, I want to read, for example, I started reading some books on physics. And then I was reading some and I was like, oh, yes, this is like learning the laws of this entorno. Yeah, I want to know. Yes, I want to know what's going on in the memorials because I know they're going to be operating in my receiver. So I want to understand what's going on there. But I leave it. I leave it where it belongs. I don't take it and contaminate my antenna with those things. No, when I'm working with the antenna, I don't take any of those things. Okay, so that is modulating whatever I have in my collective memory. So instead of, if I am working more with my intuition and less with the instinct, then I'm going to be able to modulate. And instead of repeating everything, I'm going to be progressing my octave. I'm not going to be repeating the same program. I'm going to be progressing. Okay, so this whole part is just Alejandra talking about the fact that she has a new boyfriend. Did you guys hear about that? No? Okay. Alejandra was in Peru and basically she was walking around and she says Peru always updates Alejandra tremendously, okay? Um so she's like, I'm not gonna tell you my intimate things, but like she was like, but can you see this happy woman? Like she went into a dating app. She's like, I went fishing and she decided she wanted a Peruvian man, okay? She decided she wanted a Peruvian man, so she went into an app and she fished one and they went on a date and they've been hitting it off since then. Now she says that she has a boyfriend, okay? Um So she said she was walking through this bridge, this really like highly transited bridge of cars. Underneath that bridge, there was like a lot of cars going through. And then once she walked out of the bridge, she was like, I want a Peruvian. So she was like, she used promise try with an intention. Yes, she used an intention, promise try. Um, yeah, so she's like, nobody's gonna talk to anybody. Nowadays, nobody wants to talk to anybody. We all use the digital media to talk to each other. So she went, right? And downloaded a dating app. And she says that this was part of the expansion of her barriers, right? She says that at some point of life, Peru pulled her to the antimatter. And then in this point of her life, it's pulling her to the matter because there is an intention there. Okay. So Francisco was telling me, like, what if she announces that she's pregnant now? What if she has a kid? I'd be like, oh my gosh, shut up. I don't want to think about that. Oh, it's Alejandra. Like, it's like thinking about my mother. But then she says, okay, it's like team monogamous. She's like, I only want one boyfriend. I don't want many. I picked one and then I eliminated the dating app. But she shares these things with us because she's like, I want you to see the sequence of updates, mental updates that the human person has. Yes. And the promise and the intention. And she was like, I walked the hydrogen bridge. Yeah. And I was very focused with an intention. And I walked that bridge with an intention. For me personally, that intention clarified later because in the moment I was just too like that. I was like, what is happening? But Alejandra knew what she was doing in that exact moment. Okay. So yeah, she's inviting us to event 75. These are, the information. And then thank you to Alejandra en Red. That she doesn't have, a lot of time. So Alejandra en Red has been this bridge, amazing bridge to connect with everybody in the LGC. She's just saying, I wish that you all can take out the maximum capitalization of all of these risks. Yeah, like take maximum advantage of this opportunity. That the mute zone, it's going to become louder and louder and louder because real life is going to start to talk on its own. And she's just saying that something that she loves about Peru is that people have a lot of children because there's something in Peru and Peruvian people that they know, like, no, we have to continue the species. We have to continue. We need to have an intention. Okay. She's like, okay, I hope you are happy for me and that all of this goes well for her. And then she says, if not, I'll just go fishing again. So it was like interesting to see Alejandra, um, just in that very human, right? Because LGC has this challenge of not removing all the mysticism, right? You guys, thank you so much. This was so long. I'm gonna stop the recording so we can continue, okay? Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see each other soon.